Here we are going to have a look at how to subtract and add set. So we are going to use a very simple past question to demonstrate that. If you haven't watched our video on how to add and subtract, you may consider watching that. And that's where we give a details on what you're supposed to know. But let's proceed from it. So first of all, let's check the question. What exactly the question says. So here comes the question. So here comes the question. The question says that simplify 3 over 4 square root of 128 minus root of 50, and then leave your answer in set form. Is that okay? So you can see this is a pure past question. So let's dive into the solution. So credit to A Plus series for his great work. Alright, so now let's check the solution. Now you are given this. Is that okay? You are given 3 over 4 root of 128 minus root of 50, and then they say you should simplify this and leave your answer in a set form. One thing you have to know is that which tools will be at your disposal for you to use and solve this type of problem. So maybe I call them ingredients in what preparation what certain thing. Is that okay? You have the ingredients at your disposal, and then you must know how to use it. That is why we are here to help you on that. You make you understand what you are supposed to use at the right time and how to use it. So for this type of question, you can see that there are two things over here. So this is one thing, and then this is one thing. Let's call them some guys, right? This is one guy, this is another guy. And then we want to combine them together by what? Subtraction. Now you should be asking yourself, how do you subtract and when do you subtract? Is that okay? So you only subtract if the numbers under the square root sign, this square root sign here, are the same. Is that okay? If the numbers are not the same, you can never subtract. That is a law, a very simple law, right? And you must obey that. Is that okay? Just that you need some tools in solving a particular problem. You cannot use a different ingredient in preparing different food, right? So that will be a poison. So one thing you have to understand that in addition and subtraction of a set, you have to make sure the numbers under the square root sign are the same. In this case, they are not the same. And then the first step is that you have to make sure that you convert this one into a very simple form. What I mean by the simple form, you try and see if you can get the numbers under the square root, so has to be the same. So let's dive into the solution and check that. So I'm having 3 over 4 here, and then 100 and square root of 128 minus square root of 15. And then this guy, I don't have any problem with this guy, right? I'm having 3 over 4. I don't have any. The problem is what? My aim is to know that these two guys are the same. If I try my best and I couldn't get the answer, then you have to leave it like that. You cannot subtract the two. Is that okay? Now let's try and see. I'm having 120 here. I can split this one or get a basic form out of what this 128. And how do you get that? You get that by multiplying two numbers. That will give you what 120 here, whatever the number is. Is that okay? So in this case, we are having what 128, right? So which two numbers, when I multiply it, will give me what 128. Those two numbers, one of them has to be what a perfect square. So what I call a perfect square is that when I take a square root of that number, it will give me a whole number, which we'll have a look at in a few minutes. Is that okay? Just two numbers that when you multiply, it will give you this. Is that okay? And then one has to be what a perfect square. The other one has to be already in simple form, right? In that case, you cannot do anything about it again, right? If you find it difficult in getting the perfect squares number, so why don't you go for maybe 2 multiplied by what will give me the answer here? Is that okay? In my assumption. Or maybe if 2 doesn't work, then you go for 3. 3 multiplied by which number? That number has to be a perfect square. If you don't know what's a perfect square, you may consider watching our previous video, and then I will leave a description somewhere in the comment section. Is that okay? So now in this case, I can say that 64 times 2 will give me what 120. You may be asking, how did I get the 64 and the 2? As I said earlier on, this 64, the first number here, the red one, has to be what a perfect square. If you don't know what a perfect square is a number that when I take a square root of that, it must give me a whole number. For instance, a simple one is what root 4. Is that okay? So with the aid of this radical here, the root 4 will give me what 2. So we call this one a perfect square. So you may watch that video and know more perfect on what a perfect square. So the highest perfect square is what 64 times 2. If you don't know how to do this, just start with the smallest one, maybe 2 times which number will give me 128. If 2 doesn't hold, then you go for 3 times which number will give you what 120, and so on and so forth. And then you have to make sure that that number is what a perfect square. Is that okay? Very, very simple. If you don't know what a perfect square, you maybe join our WhatsApp group or subscribe to this channel whereby we are ready to help you on one-on-one. Okay, so here I'm having a 64 times 2. That will give me 128. I'm not doing anything. I'm just splitting this one into 2. Is that okay? The idea is that you have to check whether we can get a number under the radical that are the same. Therefore, we can subtract them. Right? So, and then the next one will give me what? A root of what? 50. So, the root of 50 here, I'm having 25 times 2. Very, very easy. Is that okay? 25 times 2. In fact, you have to make sure that a perfect square number comes first. That's why I'm having a red ink over here. Can you see? Now let's proceed. We are not doing anything. We are just splitting the numbers into 2 and so on and so forth. Alright, so I'm repeating the outside as this was 3/4. And then here I want to divide them into 2. What I mean by dividing them into 2, I want everybody to have what? The square root sign. Is that okay? So I'm having root of 64 times what? Root of what? 2 here. The same applies to the second one, root of 25 what? Times what? Root what? Root 2. Right? So let's see what is going on. This is the reason why you have to make sure that one number is what? A perfect square. Here you are just repeating the outside as it is. So what I'm doing here is that you can see this guy's square root of 64 will give him what? 8. That is the reason why you have to make sure that one number has to be a perfect square. Is that okay? So square root of 64 will give me 8, and then here you cannot do anything to that. So this is what we call a basic form or a simple form, right? So that's also when you are splitting, you have to make sure that one number is what? A perfect square. The other one is what? A very simple number in its basic form. Right? So square root of 64 give me 8 over here. Then multiply by root 2. And then minus what? Here to the same thing. Square root of 25. That will give me 5. Right? Times what? Times root 2 over here. Then what is happening? What is that? Let's multiply. So I'm having 3/4 times what? Times what? 8 root 2 minus 5 what? Root 2. Is that okay? So now let's see what is happening. I will see that 3/4 here is multiplying this 8 root 2 over here. So 3/4 times what? 8 root 2. You can see that here 4 will go here into this F1, then 4 will go here how many times? 2. Right? Can you see that? Very, very simple. So here when I multiply this by this, 3 times 2 will give me what? 6 over here. Is that okay? And then here this guy, I'm not doing anything. So minus what? 5 root 2. Now you may ask yourself, after all this, what have you been doing? That just split and multiply. Is that okay? You split the numbers and so on. So this is where you should be asking yourself, can you subtract them? Right? Can you subtract? You can only subtract if the number under the square root sign is the same, right? You have two numbers here, so you have to check whether the numbers are the same. Should in case they are not the same, you can never subtract. It's just a law. Is that okay? You have to make sure the numbers under the radicals are the same. That is one thing you have to take note. The same applies to the addition, right? So since they are the same, what do? You go with the outside to outside. What I mean by the outside to outside is that the number here and then this number here. So here we are having 6 and then minus 5. Is that okay? So you just need to group them. So 6 minus 5 here, right? And then you repeat one of what the square root. That is the reason why they are saying that you should make sure that the square roots here, the numbers under the square root are the same. So in the latter part, you just repeat 1, right? By assumption, for understanding purpose. If it makes sense, fine. If it doesn't make sense, maybe yours is just learn this mathematics, pass, and move on to the next level of your education, and then leave everything to the advanced mathematicians. Is that okay? So here, since the numbers are the same, the numbers under the square root sign are the same, you go with the outside to outside. What I mean by the outside, the number attached to the square root sign. So I'm having 6 here, minus what? 5. That's what I'm having in the bracket here. So you repeat 1. That will give me what? A root 2. So of course, 6 minus 1 will give you 1. So 1 root 2. The same as what? Root 2. Is that okay? If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, like, and comment in our YouTube section below. Thank you.